Muted, Charlie.
Yes,
And you're live.
thank you. Welcome back.
Chris, I think our next candidate is ready.
Jennifer, she's on her way in.
Good evening, Jennifer. Oh, you're muted. Can you hear us? Yep.
Okay, there we go.
All right. Good evening.
Hi there.
Thanks for being patient as we go through this process.
Sure.
I'm going to quickly turn you over to the chair, and then he'll introduce the board members to you.
Terrific.
How you doing, Jennifer? Welcome.
Hello there. I'm trying to set so I can see all of you. All right. I can only see one of you at a time, but that's all right.
Up in the right-hand corner under view, there should be a gallery view. Oh,
I'm on an iPad, so it's
okay.
different.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay.
All righty. My name is Dick Quintal. I'm the chairman. Ms.
Hello
Cavacos?
there.
Betty?
Hi, my name is Betty Cavaco. I'm the vice chairman.
Hello.
Sally? And you're muted. There you go.
Jen, sorry about that. I'm Charlie Blitzer, and I'm the newest member of this board. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And Harry?
Hi, Jennifer. Harry Helm here. I'm not the newest, but a new member. I was elected past May. My background in the town is many years on the Advisory and Finance Committee.
Great. Lovely to meet you.
Patrick?
Hi, Jennifer. Nice to meet you. My name is Patrick Flaherty.
Hello.
Okay, great. Well, Jennifer, again, thank you for being here. And you've had an opportunity now to meet all the members. They've had a chance to review your resume, your cover letter, the comments that we received from your references. They have a sense of who you are and what you've done. Perhaps you could just talk to us about why you're interested in the town of Plymouth and why you believe that your experience would make you successful here.
Great. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be a finalist for your town manager position. I'm just super excited to be here and really excited about the town of Plymouth. I really feel after 30, 35 years in local government, I love this profession. I feel so blessed to have found such a fantastic profession where we really can connect with great employees, really dedicated staff, work with elected officials, and really make a difference in communities. And I've just had a fantastic career, and I just really love what I do. I've had the opportunity to have a little time, and I'm really ready to jump back in and really looking for a super community. And I'm, looking at Plymouth, and I'm seeing that it really has a lot to offer. I think that, my 35 years of experience in municipal government, I have a really deep and wide breadth of experience, solid waste and transportation and local government. And I bring all of that to this community, this complex community that's, got a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges ahead. And I really feel that I'm a really great match for this community and this opportunity. And so I'm just delighted to be here today to talk to you about the community and talk about my experience and how this might be a great fit.
Okay. Well, what is it about Plymouth that really grabs at you? I know that when the screening committee met with you, you had an opportunity to spend some time in town. Tell us about your experience and what you find most attractive about the community.
We had the opportunity to be here for a couple of days. I've spent a little bit of time in Massachusetts, not a lot, but we just really find the area really great. We really enjoyed the locals. We enjoyed the feel of Plymouth. We spent quite a bit of time. We had several meals. We walked around. We talked to folks. how do you like Plymouth? I had a chance to talk to actually an employee, just sort of got her in the hallway and had a chance to chat and see the town hall and just really enjoy myself. And, just nothing but really positive. People really enjoyed being there, the shopkeepers, just really enjoyed the feel and, obviously the privilege of being in Plymouth and what a special town it is to our nation. And it just really had a great feel. And my husband and I just really felt like this would be a place that we could call home. And, when you're a town manager, the two intertwine. And that's why the pick of where you want to be and where you want to be a town manager is so important, because your life intertwines with this work, and we could really see ourselves here. And so we just loved it. We had a great time, and we really think this is a great opportunity.
Okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your, we'll get right into sort of, if you were appointed town manager of Plymouth, and you know this from your prior positions as city managers and the communities, you would be the manager, the leader of the organization, the local government organization on a day-to-day basis. Talk to us about what that style looks like, and then I have some follow-up questions as to sort of drill down into some of those issues.
Absolutely. So really, I'm a very authentic leader. I just love what I do. And I think people really see that. I care about the organization that I work in. I care about the community that I work for. And I come in with very specific values. I have leadership values, and they're very true to who I am. And it makes working for me, quite frankly, pretty easy. So those values are exceptional customer service. We want to deliver great service to our community. Teamwork. I expect my folks to work as a team together. Safety. I believe strongly that everyone in the organization has the right to feel safe in an organization, both mentally and physically. Innovation. I really encourage innovation. And by having innovation as a value, what I can do is it really sends the message out to the organization that I want you to take risks and I want you to be creative. And when things go wrong, I'm going to take responsibility. And when things go right, you're going to get all the credit. And then the most important to me is ethics in the workplace. I expect people to be ethical. And that is just an unwavering value for me. And I think really builds a solid organization. So when you come in with those values, people know right away what your expectations are. And they really seem to gravitate to that. And it really starts to filter into the organization. People know what you expect of them and that you're going to be there and have their back. So you start talking about those things and just really getting into the organization and getting to know folks. I know that there's anxiety whenever there's a change at the town manager position. And so, really getting out, meeting with the department heads, starting to build those relationships, taking the time to do that, and really getting into what's happening in the organization. It's the first 6 months are probably the most fun because you're learning and it's really exciting, and people love to share what they do. And if there's opportunities for me to do work-alongs, I don't like to do ride-alongs. I like to do work-alongs, and so I'm actually doing the work with the employees. That's one of the really fun things I love to do. So there's opportunities to do things like that and just really get to know what's happening in the organization. And I think quickly people realize how much I care and how much I just really enjoy doing what I'm doing. And that really seems to start things off on a really good foot and provide that leadership that people are looking for.
Okay. Along those lines, in some experiences that you can relate would be helpful here. Plymouth is a town that's that in 2022 isn't the same town it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's not the same town it's going to be 10 years from now. It's going through changes. Arguably every community is, every organization is.
Yeah.
What is your experience? Can you speak to your experiences in other positions in leading an organization through a period of change, through a transition?
Absolutely. And I've been doing it for many years, many different organizations. As you can see from my resume, I was a department head for an animal shelter. I did a tremendous amount of change management there. It was really necessary. It was a very dysfunctional department. So I really cut my teeth on leadership and chair. And throughout my career, I've really led a lot of change. For the community, I think it's really, there is a lot of change happening, and growth is one of the main changes. And I think really planning for growth. Growth is going to happen to our communities whether we want it to or not. And really being able to plan for that growth and having those conversations with our communities is really the best way to manage for change. Understanding what's happening, planning for it, and not being reactive. And the same is within the organization. Change is going to happen. And the better you've built those relationships and the better you understand, especially the phases of change. You watch the employees, some go through denial and get stuck in denial. Some get stuck in the resistance phase. Others move through them really quickly. But sort of recognizing where the organization is and really increasing that communication to make sure that folks are understanding what's happening within the organization. And change is really something that can really invigorate, when done right, can really invigorate an organization. And I think is really healthy, and also for the community. We see the changes coming, and the more we can plan for those changes and be organized and communicate with our community about those changes, the more effectively we can move through those changes.
Okay. In terms of how would you go about, what would the first, you mentioned the first 6 months, but what would the first, along those lines, the first 90 days, 100 days, what would that look like is particularly as the town, as you start to look at it and start to consider, ideas for restructuring, how would you go about analyzing the Plymouth structure?
The best way really is just to get to know, especially the department heads first, work with the elected, with the selectmen. It's really important that relationship for me with those five of you is just really important. And so really starting to understand what your expectations are and what you're looking forward, to doing some goal setting would be really important. I know you have some, really kind of narrowing those down and understanding what your priorities are. And just really working with the organization and starting to move that forward. So I lost a little bit of my train of thought there. What was reorganization?
Yeah.
That comes in time. That's really, things are functioning right now. I'd have to get a feel. It's actually one of the things I really like to do is organizational change, organizational management. And I'm very good at it, of sort of understanding how things flow well, where we can have efficiencies. But I would need time to be able to do that. There's no way for me to be able to speculate at this point, but I think there's certainly opportunities.
Okay. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, sort of, because you took us down a path there in terms of working with the board. What would the relationship with the board look like for you? How would you see yourself interacting with the board?
Well, it's the most important relationships that I have are with the five of you. And my style is to meet, as long as that's something you're interested in doing, is to meet with each of you on a weekly basis. It's really important that we schedule, once a week, we have a regular time where we can get together. Now, obviously it would be virtually, but, hopefully in time in person. And, sometimes those meetings are 5 minutes because there isn't much going on. And sometimes they're the full hour. But it's a much more casual environment, and we get to know each other, and we get to dialogue, and we get to talk, and just really be able to brainstorm, noodle some ideas. And to me, that's just really, really valuable time. And, some board members, I, had one in Bothell who was only interested in meeting once a month. He'd been on the council for, 6-7 years and really felt that he was comfortable. And that was fine. And the others, all the 6 others I met, on a weekly basis. And I just really value that time. So that would be the first thing I'd really like to set up is what would you like to communicate? How often? And how would you like to do that? And where? And are you, willing to do once a week with me? And start building that relationship. And we can go through the agenda. We can talk about what's happening in the community. We can do follow-up. It's really, really important to me that I communicate equally with all 5 of you, so that no one's getting information, easier or faster, or some are getting it and some aren't. Now, there might be questions and conversations that we have that I wouldn't share with all 5. But if I'm doing updates or there's things that are happening, I keep a list. And then I go through that list with each of the 5 of you so that you're all getting updated on the same things. And then if you have questions for me and follow-ups, then I can do that and do the work that week and then follow up with you the next week. And so I just find those just to be really productive and really help us build our relationship and our communication. So that would be really key. Really working through issues. We're going to have conflicts. It's a high stress job. There's a lot of pressures on all of us, but, really being open and assuming that it's really important to come from a place of good intentions. As long as we all understand that we're all working for the community and we're all coming from a place of good intentions, we can get through anything together. And that's really important to me, that we can work through those things and have that relationship.
You've been in, you stated that you've been in local government for 30 or 35 years. Right?
Yeah.
So you're a seasoned municipal manager. In your opinion, what are the greatest threats to local government? One short term and one long term.
Only one? It's a great question, but
yeah.
I don't think I can live. All right.
I'll let you, if you have to give a couple on one of those, go ahead.
All right, I will. I can't help myself. So there's a couple, I think. One is climate change. That is just having a massive impact on all of us. Financially, you watch the federal government, you watch the state, the financial implications of climate change are staggering, and it just costs money to address some of these challenges that we're having and do the right things environmentally. And so I think climate change is a long-term threat that we all need to step up and start taking the necessary actions and planning for that. And it's years. We have years that we need to continue to work on that. And I'm just delighted to see that you have a sustainability position coming in. That's just an outstanding position to have to work on some of those things. So to me, that's one of them. We're in constant crisis of funding. We never have enough money. And with inflation now coming, we're just going to struggle. We're going to continue to struggle financially. And then the state of our infrastructure. We just don't have the money to maintain the amount of infrastructure that we have at the local government level. The roads are deteriorating, the infrastructure is deteriorating, the bridges are deteriorating, and those are long-term challenges that we need to continue to work on. From a short-term standpoint, I would say recovery from the pandemic, supporting our businesses, making sure that, we can come out the other side of this. It sounds as if you've done a really good job financially. You have a very strong finance director. You've made some really good decisions. But, we want to support our businesses. We want to support our community, bring tourism, back to where you'd like to see it, and really come out the other side of this pandemic, positive and really working our way through it.
Okay. All right. Harry, do you want to jump in with your question at this point regarding the sustainability coordinator?
Well, sure. Obviously you are aware that going to town meeting is a position of the sustainability coordinator,
Yes.
climate sustainability coordinator that would report to the town manager. How would you work with that employee?
It's just super exciting, and I'm really hopeful that goes forward. And I think it's a great opportunity to bring somebody in with expertise that many of us don't have, and really be able to look at what we're doing, look ahead. Again, it's the short term, long term. What can we do on current projects? What can we do on future projects? What are some low hanging fruit that we can do? What are some bigger projects? Where is the money available, to support some of these projects, and really start to get out in front of this and really put in some environmental initiatives and some sustainability initiatives that really can have an impact and make a difference, and something that town can be really proud of. So I'm super excited to have that position and be able to work higher and work with that individual and really see them have an impact, organizationally, and give the department support that they're looking for, and also for the community to see the strides that the board is making towards sustainability.
You also talked about the impact of infrastructure and the impact of climate change, on the finances. So let's talk about finances. Talk to us about your experience with financial management. In particular, give us an example of, that would illustrate to us your knowledge of municipal finance and your understanding of how to build a sustainable financially sustainable organization.
Well, I've done it several times. With the city of Santa Rosa, I assumed the chief financial officer position when our chief financial officer left. I did that for almost 8 months. Put the budget together and created a long-range financial forecast, actually created it myself to better deliver information to the Santa Rosa City Council so they could understand the financial challenges that the city was facing. When I went to St. Helena was in very serious financial condition. And so I used that same long-range financial forecast to really inform not only the council, but the community on where we were financially, which led us to have the opportunity to pass a sales tax increase to be able to better, financially sustain the town. And then coming to Bothell, very unexpected. The council and the interim city manager had told me that the city was in very strong financial condition, and in fact, they weren't. And so really having to get in there and understand the decisions that were made by the prior council and prior administration, why those decisions were made. And I mean, it was part of a major redevelopment plan, and some of the strategies didn't, pan out as they had planned, leaving us in a very precarious position, and, working really hard to, one, educate the council on where we were financially and some of the decisions that needed to be made, the importance of having free cash or a general fund reserve, and starting to build towards increasing that and making stronger and better financial decisions. We also went out in Bothell for 2 levies, one to raise and rebuild our fire stations, and the other was for a public safety levy to increase number of positions and enhance and maintain our safety services. So I have a really strong finance background. It's something I'm really proud of, and I think is really key to the success of an organization, and for a leader to understand finances. Years ago, I used to think that finance was the lifeblood of the organization. And one of the things I've learned, over the last 10 years is it's both finance and IT. And one is the veins and one is the arteries. And if you don't have one or the other functioning well, your organization is not going to be healthy. And we need both to function effectively for an organization to be healthy.
Okay. What is when you prepare the budget, and you and I have talked about this in the past, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more. You have a GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association budget.
Yep.
Key to that is integrating strategic planning into the budget document, into the budget process. How do you go about doing that?
Well, I'm one of my favorite things to do is to have a goal setting day. It's the day that, we just pull up our bootstraps and we get together for a whole day with the council. The department heads are there, and we really talk about who we are and what we've accomplished and what we want to accomplish moving forward. And that really sets the basis for developing the budget. From that, we, establish or reestablish or reconfirm the goals that the council has or the select board. And then we identify strategic objectives that we're going to be doing to move forward and start accomplishing those goals for the board. So that really becomes the base of developing the budget. We also go out to the community. In many of the communities I've worked in, we go out and ask the community, what are the things that you're looking for? And we make sure anytime you go out and you ask the community, you have to close that communication gap. And so in our presentations to the board or the council, when we're presenting our budgets, we always make sure that we include that information. This is what we heard from the community, and this is what we were or were not able to incorporate. Because it's just as important to tell the community why you didn't do something as much as why you are doing something. And so we take all of that as part of our strategy and then build the budget around that, and then are able to present that in a draft form to the budget. Normally what I do is I do that over a multiple evening event where we do a workshop. In Bothell, we did it over 3 nights, 4 hours each night, and each department presents their budget. And we have a really robust discussion about why the budget is like that, what the increases are, what the decreases are, and put decisions at the end, really critical policy decisions that I need from the council to be able to then finalize the budget so that I can bring it to them. So it's really based on these goals and strategic objectives, these communications that we have, develop the budget and continue to talk to the community and the council, ultimately to deliver that city manager's budget.
In terms of, again, going back to something you mentioned before about the infrastructure, the challenge of maintaining infrastructure, one could declare that to be a liability that's out there that a community has to grapple with.
Yep.
And the other is OPEB, another huge liability that needs to be managed. What's your strategy with dealing with infrastructure? And what's your strategy with dealing with OPEB liabilities in terms of, because, absent doing that, you kind of, again, financial stability and sustainability isn't possible.
Absolutely. So it's really about communication and understanding. So, a lot of these things we hid for many years, and I don't think the community and many of the boards and councils really understood what was happening. And so really having that open, transparent, authentic conversation about these are the realities of what we're doing. It's really interesting because in California, our pension obligation problems are with the actual pension, not with the healthcare. Whereas in Massachusetts, it's your healthcare that's, has your huge unfunded liability. And so in California, it's crippling. The pension obligation is crippling cities in California. And, slowly we started to put together strategies on, how we're going to do that. Some cities made the decision to borrow debt to pay down their OPEB obligations. And then the stock market crashed. And so not only did they have the debt, but they had increased payments because the obligation became, the liability became even bigger. It was catastrophic. We actually did that in Santa Rosa before I started. And these were it's just crippling. In Washington, they've actually managed their pension liabilities really well. We have a much lower pension system here and no retiree health. And so we don't have those issues here. And so obviously that's going to be something that, I need to continue to work on, when I come to Massachusetts and Plymouth, to identify strategies to be able to do that. But again, it's really acknowledging that it's there and identifying those, what strategies we can do, and obviously working with the unions and working with the employees and working with the legislature to see what changes can be made. In California, we made huge legislative changes to reduce the pension benefits that will help over time, not immediately, but it is helping over time. With the infrastructure, again, it's really understanding. It's understanding the condition of your roads, talking about the condition pavement index and where you are and what you're striving to be at. Are you at a 50, which is, your roads are close to failing, or are you at 70, which is a fairly good grade? Are you striving for 80? And really having those authentic conversations, and then looking at the cost, the total cost. Back when I was in Fullerton in the 90s, I brought together a citizens group, and we were bleeding in our infrastructure, unfunded infrastructure liabilities. And we put together a whole strategy really about how do you stop the bleeding, and then how do you, continue to put monies aside. And, the council didn't follow those strategies. It was recommended by the community in the report, and the conditions continue today. And when I look at Fullerton 20 years later, their infrastructure is completely deteriorated because they didn't make the investments. And so again, as I go back to, some of those long-term, threats that we have at local government, dealing with these things are a huge issue. And, there is, money coming from this big infrastructure bill from the federal government. But unfortunately, people don't realize that that's just not money that's going to be cut and we get to do projects. Federal money comes with huge reporting and obligations. And, obviously we'll vie for that money, but it's not free money. And there's a lot of work that has to go behind getting federal grant money. But we'll certainly look for those opportunities and continue to look for opportunities from the state, and really looking at where your infrastructure is. and just continuing to put, if you can develop a strategy and stay true to that strategy and continue to make progress, you are going to make some progress on it. But one, being knowledgeable about it and making sure that the board understands and that the community who are engaged understand is a big step in that direction.
Okay. Another that's certainly tied in with finances is economic development.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as the role of the town manager in promoting economic development? And can you give us some examples in your current or in your prior experiences too that would illustrate what that role is?
You have an economic development director. You're engaged in economic development and tourism. So it's really, what does that director and that staff need from me? I really need to know from the board, what are your goals? What do you want from economic development? What are you eager to see? And then putting that strategy together based on the board's vision of what you would like to see happen in the town, and working with the staff, and where am I best utilized? We had a pretty aggressive economic development program. We didn't have anybody when I came to Bothell. And we have a life sciences, bioscience hub here in Bothell that is actually second to the one in Boston. And it's fairly, not well known. And quite frankly, the council really hadn't connected with them at all. And it was one of the things the economic development manager really worked with me on. And we established relationships with those businesses, Phillips and Juno and Seattle Genetics, and big businesses up there that really were key to part of our success as a community. And establishing, and she would take me to those meetings, and we had some quarterly meetings with some of those general managers or CEOs or facility managers as they were trying to expand, and really building those relationships. And when it comes to economic development, your first priority really is supporting the businesses that you have. If just make sure that they're sustainable, support them, and then if they want to expand and there's opportunities for them to expand, that's really your base. And then you can move out and look at looking for attracting new businesses. But really, wherever I can be, however I can help, and especially, translating the board's goals and visions into an economic development program, and really going out and figuring out what's best for Plymouth.
Charlie?
Yes, Jennifer, there's two projects that you noted in your resume in Bothell that I'm interested in. The $5 million Main Street enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do, and how did you do it, and who paid for it?
So right before I started,
is because I'd be interested in coming up, figure out how we get some grant money to help the downtown to spruce it up, to make it look a little bit nicer, more inviting to our tourism. So I'd love to hear how you did that.
Well, probably wasn't the best strategy. You have to burn down an apartment complex that was under construction. And that happened right before I started. And so it was a very, very big fire. It happened a few months before I started. And that really brought the attention of the state to our downtown, and our fire department and our mutual aid basically saved it's a very small downtown, but it saved the downtown from burning down completely. And from that, we were able to get attention from the governor to say, look at our downtown. I mean, this has been a catastrophic loss of a new apartment complex that was, halfway under construction. What can you do for us? And so the governor was able to bring in $5 million for us to do a major infrastructure improvement to our Main Street. And so that was one section of Main Street, actually 2 blocks, where we redid the entire sidewalk, all the amenities, the street lighting. We made it much more pedestrian friendly and really made it a place where we can have festivals and have really great events. So that's where the money came from. And then we were able to deliver a really great project.
So that's obviously something we don't want to do.
No.
The other one was, you talked about the parking structures and the bus,
Mm-hmm.
the bus. How did you do that? And again, how did you fund that? Because we have a structure all built and not built, it's all designed. That it's going to be a $30 million project that we can't afford to fund. So I was wondering how you did it there.
So the region passed what we call ST3, Sound Transit 3. So there was a Sound Transit 1, a Sound Transit 2, and then a Sound Transit 3. And Sound Transit is a regional agency that delivers light rail and bus services. And so in Sound Transit 3, the cities along the corridor of the 522, which is it's a highway, but it's arterial that go through several of the cities, including Bothell, band together to really push Sound Transit to include bus rapid transit for the east side, because the east side's never going to see light rail. That went to the west side, Bellevue, and where the basically those that are more connected to downtown Seattle. And so we fought to get that bus rapid transit. And so as part of that, several parking structures were included to be able to make the bus rapid transit functional. We also have a bus maintenance facility that got sited in Bothell. And part of that was to negotiate with Sound Transit. It's very hard to site a bus maintenance facility. Nobody wants it. And so when I negotiated with Sound Transit, that was one of the ideas was, look, we're not going to put up a whole lot of barriers for you to site this in our city. But what we want in exchange is we want help in infrastructure improvements, off the freeway where we have congestion. We want to site, a well-placed parking structure in our community. And so that was sort of that give and take of being a good partner with Sound Transit. So the money for the parking structure and for the bus rapid transit system would come from this regional sales tax that was passed by the voters.
Okay. Thank you.
Jennifer, you probably already hit upon this, but you've mentioned the tourism, and tourism is arguably the largest industry, and it's going to remain of significant importance. How would you go about diversifying the economy, the local economy, though, to attract more commercial, light industrial and office commercial type of investments in the town?
It's a great question, and it's what a lot of us are trying to figure out. I mean, when you look across America, there's 15,000 towns and cities. Maybe not all of them are looking for, economic development and businesses to come into their communities, but many are recognizing that, business is really a key part of a community's success. And we're all striving to get those high-paying, high earning and high spending jobs into our communities, because they're the most valuable ones that really kind of can bring up a community economically. And so really it's about reputation, and it's about identifying industries that, maybe haven't looked at certain communities, maybe haven't looked at Plymouth. You do have properties available. What do those properties look like? And what are things we can do preemptively to be able to bring businesses in? So what we did in Bothell was we have that same business park I was talking about with the life sciences and biosciences. That's actually a privately owned business center, and within the covenants of that business center, the business owners had decided that there would be no residential, which really limited, especially with this next generation who want to live and work very close to where they are. They want to live where they're working. We started working with the business owners to talk about a new plan, a sub-area plan, we call it. And what we did is we spent several years designing a sub-area plan that would really enhance the ability of this business park to grow, including adding residential, upping the height limits, and most importantly is we did all the environmental for this sub-area plan. And so any business that came in wouldn't have to do an environmental review because we'd done it in advance. That's a huge benefit to businesses. And so really learning about what is a business looking for. There's a desperate need for lab space. I know in our area, lab space is very hard to find. It's very hard to site. It's hard for cities to do the inspection, the building inspection, and to do the permitting on that because it's very specialized. And so there are opportunities, and it's really sort of laying the groundwork and working with your economic development director and working with the planning director to identify, what are some industries that are starting to grow now. No one really knows what's going to happen with office space. I've read multiple articles where businesses are starting to do more shared, and they are starting to reduce space. And then other articles say, no, they want more space because they want to have more of an open feel, like more of an auditorium style. So they want more space so people can feel like they're working at home rather than working in a cubicle. And so nobody really knows the next 5 to 10 years what sort of that office space is the need for that's going to be. But really, it's looking at what we have, looking at the assets that we have. We're close to Boston. Not everybody wants to be in a big city anymore, but the next generation really doesn't want to be isolated in the suburbs. They want to go to restaurants. They want to have activities. They want to be close enough. They want to be healthy. So they want to be able to hike and do things and go on bike routes. And Plymouth offers a lot of that, and that's what businesses are looking for. And I think that if we can really focus on those opportunities, do some preemptive planning, and really show businesses that we mean business, and we can be a partner with them, I think there's some real opportunities ahead for Plymouth.
One of the great challenges with all economic development is balancing the growth and that comes with that development, the residential and commercial development, with environmental concerns. What's been your strategy with regards to that?
I really think, it's super exciting to move forward with a sustainability coordinator. Again, it's showing the community and the business development community that Plymouth is serious about this, and really being able to balance those things. Really setting forward some expectations. If there's anything developers hate, it's surprises. And so the more upfront, and the best way to plan for growth is planning. And so if we can have those expectations out there, and we can be known as a community that's going to protect its environment, but we're going to balance that with effective development. We've done some really interesting things. We were able to sell a piece of property in the downtown that was very close to the river. But we were able to work around that, and that apartment complex which actually is an affordable housing complex for very low income seniors. It benefited from the setbacks for the critical habitat, and really adds to the quality of that development. And so there are really good balances there. And again, employers and their employees are looking for places to work where they can be proud to work, and that they can have those opportunities to walk around. When we did the sub-area plan for Canyon Park, there was a lot of critical area up there that was protected. And the way we designed that was really to be part of the business park, and they were places for people to walk and be able to get out at lunch and take a break and get some fresh air and enjoy that critical open space. And so there is balance there, but again, it's eliminating the surprises and really making sure we're working with anyone interested in developing, that we're upfront about who we are, and that we're committed to sustainability, and we're committed to the environment. This is what we're expecting from our developers.
Anything else on this that anyone wants to ask at this point? You can always come back. Let's talk about another aspect of being a town manager. All of the employees that work for the town, you're responsible for managing all of those people, albeit with the department heads. What's your approach to motivating and evaluating employees, holding them accountable? And how do you prefer to interact with employees?
As much as I can. It's the best part of the job. Really, it goes back to those values. Delivering exceptional customer service, working together as a team, making sure that people feel safe in their work environment, being innovative. It's that innovation. When employees know that they're safe to take risks and they're safe to innovate, it's amazing to watch them bloom, and physically their body language changes, and they open up, and you can see the creativity and the inspiration. When employees are afraid to take risks and they don't feel like they have permission to be innovative, they physically pull in, and there's sort of this tightness in the community, in the organization. And then the ethics that, I am open and honest with them, and I expect the same, and there will be accountability. I have no place in the organization for someone who is unethical. I can't function in an organization where ethics is not a value, and there isn't a place for people who don't believe in those values and treat people with fairness and accountability and respect, and are honest and take responsibility for their mistakes. So those things are really important to me. And when those values get out and people start to hear about them, it really eases the temperature in the organization, because those are pretty easy things, and people like it, and they like to know what's expected of them. Public service is an amazing place, and the people who choose to be in public service really are good-hearted people. It's just a privilege to be a part of this profession and to find organizations and be part of organizations where people care so deeply about their work. And so, I really like the interactions. I always tell the story that, I had the opportunity to have a refrigerator in my office. I chose not to do that, and have my water and iced tea and things in the common area of the the break room. And it was my way of being able to go downstairs and fill my water glass and be able to see people and say hello and chat for a minute. And those things energize me. They fill my tank. And I just love that. And, when I was doing my 360 evaluation for my review, some of the feedback that came back was, the employees hold Jennifer in high regard because she holds them in high regard. And some of them said, which was super touching, she sees me. And I hadn't really thought about it until I saw it in writing. And I thought, well, yeah, because you're important to me. Everyone, I try to learn everyone's name. I want to know everyone's name. It's just really important to me. And I think they know how much I care and how much I value them. One of the really fun things I love to do is at some of the critical holidays, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the day before Christmas or Christmas Eve. We have pretty short staffs. There's a few tried and true folks, and they're usually new people who are there, but town hall is pretty empty. And what I love to do is go around, and around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I let everybody go home. But I don't want to close the town hall because I think it's important that we're there to serve people. But I let everybody go, including the department heads. I make the department heads go. And I work the front desk, and I answer the phones. I do all the customer service at the front desk, and I leave the front doors open. And I serve the community for those hours. And I love to do that. And I think the employees know that I do that for them because I really value what they do, and I want them to get on the road. Traffic's horrible on those days. I want them to be home with their families. And those are the fun things that you get to do that I think really resonate within the organization. And they're really fun for me to do. And I can tell you, working that front desk, you learn so much. It's such a great opportunity to talk to some of the residents and really know the work that your people are doing at the front desk.
In terms of also related to personnel management is the collective bargaining that has to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Both Washington and California there are public sector unions.
Yep.
How do you go about what's your style? What's been your experience in working with unions?
I've been doing collective bargaining and labor negotiations for well over 20 years now. I started in Fullerton, have been on many bargaining teams. And so been through some good negotiations where things have gone really well, especially when money's flowing and we're not in financial crises. And I've been through others where it's really tough. And a lot of it goes back to that established relationship of the employees know how hard it is to make tough decisions. And I really, 70 or 80% of our budget is people. We're a service business. That's what we do. We deliver service through people. So the easiest thing to do whenever there's a financial problem is to just balance the budget on the backs of the employees. And I really don't like to do that. I really like to work with the board to understand other options, look at service changes, and not just make that the first choice. cut salaries, don't give raises, whatever it is. Sometimes that's part of the formula, but I don't like it to be just the first option to really look at. And I think the employees know that, and they know how hard I fight for them, and really want to do right by them. And I think that's important. When we came across COVID, Bothell is not a strong sales tax. We have sort of the standard. We don't have a mall. We don't really have any sort of major retail. And so we had no idea what COVID was going to do to our sales tax numbers. And so we were already financially struggling. We were not in a strong position yet. And so, I made the decision that, we needed to lay off employees. We laid off 14 people. We did furloughs, and everybody came to the table, not police and fire because they can't furlough. But we talked to both police and fire, looked at administrative positions, and, we laid people off, and it was really, really hard. And we all hated it. The unions hated it. I hated it. It was terrible, but we understood what we needed to do, and we did it together. And I'm really proud of that.
Moving into another category, and this ties to a priority of this board. When they engaged with us to do this, to help with this search, we reached out and said, okay, what are you looking for from a manager? One of the comments that runs through many of the what we received was the board was looking for a town manager who worked to improve communication with residents and improve services to residents. And also running through all this is really be engaged with the community. You mentioned earlier, particularly as related to the budget, how you interact with the residents with regards to that. Talk to us about how you would enhance communication and transparency within the town of Plymouth, and how you would become a member of the community.
That's one of the reasons that I pick so carefully. I need to feel that connection to be an effective town manager. And so I always have. In every community that I've worked, I've really felt connected to that community, because when I applied for the job and I looked at the job, I felt some sort of connection to it. It was a place I wanted to be. It was a community that I felt comfortable in. And I feel the same thing about Plymouth, that it really has something that I want to be a part of. There's a draw, there's an attraction there, there's energy there. And it's happened very naturally for me. And I think it goes back to that authentication, the authentic feeling that I have, because I want to be there. I spend a lot of time in the community. We eat in the community. I go running in the community. I go to community events, not because I have to, because I want to. And, my husband's always there with me. And, if we're able to bring the dog, we bring the dog. And we're there because we're having a good time, not because, oh yeah, I've got this event and I got to be there. Let's pop in, be seen, and go. It's fun. It's fun to see the community. And, people know me. They know me on the street. They wave to me. They know that they can talk to me about their issues. They know oftentimes I'll be proactive about the issues, and, I'll come out and talk to a business, or I'll see something that doesn't seem right to me when I'm out on one of my walks or runs. And I just engage in that community and really feel that I become part of that. And I think that's really important. Transparency for me, that's really become a buzzword in our community, in our sort of world of government. But I think it's really, we're struggling at it. And I think there's still a distrust among communities that we're still not being transparent enough. And all we can do is just, be very open and honest about the work that we're doing, get the information out there, get it out there in a timely fashion. The quality of work that I'm seeing coming out of Plymouth is very impressive. I've watched the town meetings, I've watched the board meetings. The staff appears prepared, they're answering good questions. The materials seem quality. There's good work going on. And so we want to continue to build on that, and really build that trust with the community. We haven't cracked the communication nut yet in local government. We've been working on it for years. There's just people who don't want to be engaged in what we're doing, and I respect that. But I think that we can continue to strive, and and one of the things I like the best is going to where people are. I think having everything at the town hall, and I think expecting people to come to us is an unrealistic expectation. And I think it's been interesting with COVID and these virtual meetings. I think more people are engaged now than they were before because they can just click in and feel like they're part of the meeting rather than just sort of watching it on television and, not being able to ask a question. And there's some really good software out there, if that's something we want to look at, that can further engage communities as we hold board meetings and commission meetings and things like that. But there's really no silver bullet on just fabulous community communication. I think it's just continuing to look at each community and how people are engaging, where we're connecting with them, what kind of information they're looking for, and just doing great work and keep building those relationships.
Okay. Go ahead, Charlie.
On that community involvement, Jen, looking at your resume, I'm just looking at what I see, and you have quite a few jobs, and you seem to move around pretty good, like 3 to 5 years. This last job, I noticed you retired. You took a buyout.
Mhm.
So you didn't finish the contract. You retired. And what made you come out of retirement to come across country? It's a long way to come across country. And the last thing is, what kind of a commitment are you going to have with Plymouth? It's just like a 3-year deal and you'd be gone, or because I think there's a lot of work to be done here, and I'm very concerned about finding the town manager that will hit the ground running and get some of these projects. We got a lot of things that we have to get accomplished. So I'm looking for a commitment. I'll be honest with you, looking at your resume, it's a great resume, but you don't stay too long anywhere. That's one of my concerns. So if you can explain that.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you asking the question. Part of it is, really looking for opportunities where I can make a difference. So, I was an assistant city manager in Santa Rosa, and I felt that I was ready to be a city manager. My city manager, wasn't going to be retiring, and I was ready to take the next step. And the opportunity in St. Helena came up, which is just the valley over, and didn't require us to move. And so, that was a great opportunity for me to, be a first-time city manager. And it's a very interesting community. It's a very challenging community. And at some point, you realize that you're not able to move a community forward. And the things that the council is looking for, the community's just not interested. And so, I did what I could for that community. I saved them from basically being insolvent, brought them additional revenue. We passed the sales tax measure, and really felt that from a quality of life standpoint, we wanted to do something different. My husband had retired, and California is a very expensive state. And so we really wanted to, improve our quality of life and wanted to move to Washington. My intention in Bothell was to stay to the end of my career. The shelf life of city managers is running 2 to 3 years in some states. I stayed for 4. I had a fantastic team that I built. We did fantastic work. There was still a lot of work to do. But quite frankly, the council wasn't really, I have a non-disparaging clause in my contract, one that I didn't want to have because I was fine with them talking about anything, but it was very important to them that it be in there to protect them. So I can't say too much, but there were some issues among themselves with the council and the ability to move an organization forward and to keep doing good things. If you have a council that is struggling among themselves, there's a point where you're not valued, what you're doing isn't valued. And when it becomes a huge part of your life, like I do for my organizations, there's a time to ask the question, and it was the right time to ask that question. And for me, it was the right decision, and I was sorry to go. And I would really like to have stayed much longer, but it's up to a council, and I think it was the right decision at the time. The year off has been outstanding. And I am ready and I am committed and I would like to stay for an extended period of time. I can see it's one of the things that attracts me to Plymouth. I really don't want to do a short gig. And as long as the board is happy and I'm happy and we're working well together, I see a very long relationship in this opportunity, and it's something that's really important to me. This isn't a short-term gig for me. And why Massachusetts? Why Plymouth? You know, it's a lot of it's quality of life. It's exciting. I mean, you get to do something really neat. And I mean, to be a town manager in Plymouth is, I mean, it's a dream. And I just think it would be great.
When you say a long-term commitment, Jennifer, you know, what are you looking at for, you know, like another individual that we spoke with tonight, a question was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
The Plymouth town manager.
Okay. All right. Okay. Would you plan to live within Plymouth or within a reasonable distance of Plymouth?
We would love to live in Plymouth. You have a very short housing supply. And so a little flexibility might be necessary. Plymouth would obviously be our first choice, and we would do everything possible to be able to live in Plymouth. But to be really honest, after 5 years of living in an apartment, after the fires in Santa Rosa, over 3/4 of our stuff still in storage, we need to settle down. And that would be part of the longevity too. We really want to buy a house, we want to settle down, and we want to make this our permanent home. And so absolutely Plymouth would be our first choice. But we need to find a house and we need to settle in. And so there may be a little bit of flexibility that might be needed to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think that that wraps up our questions, or the questions that I have, but the board members may have others. Betty?
Yes, Jen, thank you for coming and being part of our finalists here. I know you have a lot of energy, and I can appreciate that. One of the comments that you had made earlier is that you know, there would be time, you'd have to wait a certain amount of time before you could see what changes would have to be made. So I'm wondering, is there like, I mean, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it like, what is your thought process on how long it would take you to evaluate this enormous government structure that we have? And how long do you think that process would take?
You know, it's a great question, and I don't know. You know, I've made some changes that were absolutely necessary within months of arriving at an organization, because something had to change. And again, when it goes to ethics and individuals who maybe don't belong in the organization, a change might need to be made very early, and I've done that. It just really depends, and sometimes it can be a small incremental change that you build upon. And others are more major reorganizations. So it's really fluid. And that's part of the fun part, but it's also when we go back to change, you know, you really don't want to rock the organization too much and sort of keep doing reorgs and keep doing reorgs and keep doing reorgs. It really disrupts the work and it makes the employees sort of unsettled. Well, wow, what's coming next? And so I don't know. It depends on, I tend to sort of work with a sense of urgency. I'm not sort of one of those people that's like, well, we'll wait a while and see how that goes. And I'm sort of like, we got to get things done. And I know you have goals and I know we want to get things done. And let's move. And sometimes I can recognize a roadblock fairly quickly, and some changes can be done. And other times it's, things are flowing for a while. So it's a really great question, but it's a super hard one to answer. But I think most importantly is understanding that I want to get things done, and that organizational change is one of the tools in which I get things done.
And I appreciate your honesty. And I just have one other question is that, and this board can attest, we have a giant constituent services with all of us. I don't think there is a selectman here or a select board member here that can say that they're not contacted every day by someone regarding something. So how would you handle something like that? Because there were 5 of us, and I'm sure we all have our own little niches, and people contact us for the different little niches that we have. So how do you see kind of dealing with all that? Because there's a lot of people here, and they do this a lot. So.
Well, and it's important because it's their community. And I've worked in communities that are larger than Plymouth. I served communities of several million. Santa Rosa was 170,000, Fullerton was 130,000. So I've worked in large communities. Bothel's 50,000, and that's part of the job. And one of my top priorities, and what's super important to me, is that the 5 of you feel successful, that you feel like you're being responsive to your constituents. And so, whether it's within a few hours or whether it's in 24 hours, trying to get you that information and trying to be able to respond to that constituent and getting you what you need is really one of my top priorities. And so I spend a lot of time on that, and it's important. I mean, that's why we're here. We're here to serve our community. It's not an annoying gnat in the corner. It's really important. And so it's just part of the job. And it's especially in the first 6 to 12 months, it's a great way for me to learn. Because those questions are going to come in and I'm not going to have any answers at all for months. And so I get to go to the department heads and departments and ask and learn. And so it's a super way for me to learn. And then in time, many of them I'll be able to answer myself, and others I'll still need help from staff. But I'm very respectful of that and really want to be there for each of you to be able to get that information back out to your constituents so that they feel they're being heard. And that's one of those transparency things, right? Well, I asked the question, but I never heard, or I got this weird answer, or it took a month, or it took a week. That's what people equate to transparency, and it's important. And it's that exceptional customer service. We want to deliver and meet people's expectations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I appreciate you joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Other questions? Harry.
Hi, Jennifer. I guess a simple yes/no question, but I would have a follow-up question to it, depending upon your answer. Have you had experience with the town meeting form of government, where town meeting basically occurs in this instance twice a year, and it is the legislative branch?
No, I have not.
Okay, what are your thoughts on town meeting?
I think it's very interesting. I think that there's a real opportunity for a larger portion of the community to be engaged. I've seen so many times 5 or 7 elected officials trying to make legislative decisions. And I remember having conversations, especially with a couple of my council members. How do I know? How do I vote on this? How do I know what the community wants? I don't know. And this, town meeting format allows a much larger group of individuals, and you have representative, so the people who are going. It's not the open town meeting, but it's representative. So the staff gets to know, the individuals who are going to these, who are elected to these positions and who are attending the town meeting. And it's an opportunity for a much broader group of people to have a voice in the process. I think it's really interesting. It's quite frankly, it's one of the things that's attractive to me. Is I love to grow and learn and do things differently. And I think it's really interesting, and I'm excited to be a part of something like that. I know it's a lot of work. I can imagine what the preparation must be like. It's a preparation just for a council meeting is already a lot of work. To prepare this massive packet for the town, for the annual meeting must be just a huge lift. But I also see the benefits in it, and the broader community and the broader transparency that we can have when legislative decisions are being made.
So if that were to change, one of the possible transitions going on in Plymouth possibly is to a city form of government, as opposed to as defined in Massachusetts, which could be various things, of which you would probably be more accustomed to than town meeting. How are you going to maintain, a straight line of management while the possibility of the legislative nature of our government changing?
I'm not really worried about that. I mean, we have our track, and this is what we're doing right now. And if ultimately there's a decision to change the form of government, I'm actually in a position, because I've worked in different forms of government, to be a really good conduit, to be able to support the board and the community and the staff through a change into a different form of government. I mean, it'll be another change. We talk about change management, but it's nothing that I'm concerned about from a leadership standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board members? All right. Jennifer, would you like to closing comments?
I just want to thank you for the time. I wish I was there. I wish I could meet all of you in person. I really enjoyed the time with the search committee. Really enjoyed my time in Plymouth, and even if it was virtual, I wish I was sitting in Plymouth and was with all of you. It's such a beautiful community. I've enjoyed talking to the staff that I've had the opportunity to speak with, and spending the time in your community. And I really, I'm extremely interested in this opportunity. I feel I bring a lot to the town manager position, and hope that you'll consider me for this great opportunity. And I look forward to your decision.
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Okay. Next steps. Boards do different things at this point in time. So I'll leave it up to you how you want to handle this. You can have a discussion tonight. You can have a discussion on another night. You can, however you want to do this.
Pleasure of the board.
I'd like to have this discussion tonight.
Is everybody else comfortable?
Mr. Helm, you're muted, Harry.
Yeah. I think we've been presented with some excellent candidates. As such, I guess a discussion would be fine, but that leads to a vote, and I'm uncomfortable taking a vote. And I would be more comfortable if I could take what I've learned tonight, have some time to think about it, think about Plymouth and where we're going. I mean, this is going to be perhaps the most significant decision that this board makes. And I personally would feel comfortable with a couple days to, or whatever is required in order to get it posted properly, and then reconvene and have that discussion and that vote. That's how I feel.
Charlie?
I got the names and the resumes. We've had it for about a week. And I've done my due diligence in that time. I've talked to several people about the different candidates. And after tonight, I think in my mind, there were 3 good candidates. I thought 2 were very good. One, but there was one clearly I'm ready to vote as our next town manager for Plymouth. So, but you know, if the board's not all for it, I'll leave it up to, because I want to do this right. I agree with you, Harry. It's a very important position, but I'm not going to change my opinion. I've looked at everything. I listened to the interviews. I've done my due diligence, and I'm very comfortable on who I want to vote for. So that's how I feel. I don't know how Patrick feels, but.
Patrick?
Yeah, I think overall I'd be more comfortable just taking a little bit of a pause to sort of digest some of that. Like Charlie and everyone else, we've had the time to see the materials, the resumes, and hit the Google. But there's just something about 3 straight hours of hearing from people that it's sort of a lot all at once, and a lot of notes and things like that. But if the board was moving forward, I would take my vote tonight. But I think if there's a preference, I would say to have a little bit of a pause right now. Again, not a long time, just a little bit of time to sort of sit back on this and then make that decision.
Charlie?
How long will it take, Harry? How much time do you need? Because I don't think it's fair to the candidates to hold this out too long. I mean, we need to post it, so we need at least 48 hours. But I think the sooner we can have a meeting and come up to a decision. How long do you need, Harry? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that, I would just like to say that I think that Patrick brought up a good point. Aside from the resumes and the cover letters that we've seen and the research that we've all done, okay, we just spent, over 4 hours listening to 3 candidates, and I just need some time to digest it. I don't need a lot of time. I'm not talking about a week. I'm talking about the amount of time that it takes to properly post a meeting.
Mr. Chairman, are we able to do it? Because I want this to be, I don't want any controversies. I want this to be unanimous, on what we're doing. I really do. I'd like to see that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know who I'm voting for, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or the next day.
So I'll make a
I'm not gonna
motion.
tell you now. No. I'm just saying, the board can take all the time it might need, but I can write it on a piece of paper and give it to somebody in this house.
So,
That's who I'm voting for. I mean, I don't need to look
so-
at anything else. I've done my homework. I've done my Googling. I've asked my questions. I've listened to them. In 2 days, it's not gonna sound any different than it did tonight. But I mean.
I don't think it's unreasonable if a couple of board members would feel more comfortable. How quick can we do that, Lee? 2 days?
Friday morning, I think.
48 hours in advance. Yeah, Friday morning could work.
Can we pick a time? It's not going to take long, right?
You never know. Could come out and not have it.
Friday
I've
morning.
been there before.
I-
I've been the holdout guy a couple times, at least once, I can remember. And that means sitting there for half an hour without changing my vote. So that could be any one of you. I'm not saying I'm gonna do it. I'm just telling you what I've seen in the past. It's up to the board. I mean, either way.
Make a motion right now to do it at 9 o'clock Friday morning, if everybody's available.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Okay, good, beautiful.
Friday, 9 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for your consideration, guys. Appreciate it.
no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bernie.
Thank you. I will see you on Friday morning.
Okay, sir.
Great, thank you.
All right. Christopher?
Yes, sir. I've got Charles Heller coming
I
in.
was gonna ask, yeah, let me know when
Whittington.
she's ready. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just gonna go off camera. I'm here, but I just need to go off camera for a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. Good evening, welcome. Ms. Heller, how are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I know you've had a very, very long night, and we promise to be concise and brief. I would like to share my screen, please.
Okay,
Let me start this little program. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share information with you tonight about the U.S. Forest Service's Forest Legacy Grant Program. Three of us will be presenting this evening: Mark Withington, a lifelong Plymouth resident and organizer of the Pine Hills Area Trails System, otherwise known as FATS; Lindsay Nystrom, the Forest Legacy Program Coordinator for the Department of Conservation and Recreation, Bureau of Forest Fire Control and Forestry; and me, Charles Heller, Coordinator of the Massachusetts Coastal Pine Barrens Partnership and a Plymouth resident since 2005. The Massachusetts Coastal Pine Barrens Partnership
Need aspirin.
formed in 2015 and is one of 42 regional conservation
Need
partnerships
some aspirin.
across New
Can you
England.
shred that?
Our partnership focuses on the coastal pine barrens of southeastern Massachusetts, an ecoregion formed by retreating glaciers 18,000 years ago, whose boundaries are shown on this map. The Pine Barrens Partnership Steering Committee consists of these organizations: Cape Cod Commission, Mass Audubon, Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, Manomet Inc., Wareham Land Trust, Simmons Stewardship and Conservation Ecology, and the Pine Barrens Alliance. It is the partnership's mission to bring about broad recognition of the unique qualities and intrinsic value of the Massachusetts Coastal Pine Barrens ecoregion, building partnerships to protect, restore, manage, and connect landscape to support the diversity of plants and animals, provide a forum for landscape resiliency planning, prepare for the effects of climate change, and maintain the Pine Barrens' enduring appeal to residents and visitors alike. The partnership recently completed a U.S. Forest Service landscape scale restoration grant that included a project within the Plymouth Town Forest. The partnership has been encouraged by people in the U.S. Forest Service, the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and the DCR Department of Forestry to apply for a Forest Legacy grant and have offered their assistance in applying for this grant. Ms. Nystrom will be speaking about the grant in detail. I would like to share why the Partnership Steering Committee is focusing on the Holtec property as the core of a potential Forest Legacy grant application. Holtec Decommissioning International owns the largest remaining tract of undeveloped, globally rare coastal pine barrens forest, critical habitat for 43 state-listed species. This forest has had a management plan in place since 1977 and has been managed constantly for fire reduction and forest health, making it an extremely high value and healthy forest. This property also, is notable as the highest coastal elevation from Acadia in Maine to North Carolina, providing 360-degree views from Cape Cod Bay to Buzzards Bay. Conservation of these parcels will also provide enhanced recreational opportunities as required by the grant, which Mr. Withington will elaborate upon later in this presentation. And equally important, conservation of this land fits in with the Select Board's recent climate emergency declaration, quote, to support climate mobilization strategies, including prioritizing forests and other open spaces because of their ability to draw carbon out of the atmosphere and store it, end quote. This map includes all of the Holtec property, with the unlicensed parcels outlined in blue. These parcels are available for purchase if the Select Board designates conservation as your top priority for this land. The yellow outlined parcels will become available for acquisition, but only after the decommission process is complete, probably in 2027 or 2028. Holtec has let us know that they would be a willing seller of the unlicensed parcels for the purposes of a grant application, provided the town is in consensus. Supporting the Forest Legacy Grant are these groups: Plymouth Conservation Commission, Plymouth Planning Board, Community Preservation Committee, the Plymouth Open Space Committee, the Plymouth Area League of Women Voters, Sustainable Plymouth, Wildlands Trust, and the Herring Pond Wampanoag Tribe. But we need the Select Board's support to move forward with the Forest Legacy Grant application. And that is why we're here tonight. I'd like to hand over the screen now to Lindsay Nystrom, who can give you the specifics of the Forest Legacy program. So I will stop sharing my screen and say hello to Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Let me get my slides up. So as Charles said, I'm going to give you an overview of the Forest Legacy Program and how it works. It's a national conservation grant program that's managed in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and the Massachusetts DCR, who I work for, Department of Conservation and Recreation. The mission of the Forest Legacy Program is to protect environmentally important forest land that is threatened by conversion to non-forest uses, like housing, agriculture, or solar fields. I apologize for my cats in the background making noise. Through the program, we can preserve land either by purchasing it in full fee or using a conservation restriction. And protected lands can remain working forests. It's an entirely voluntary program, and acquisition is only made if there is an amicable agreement between the landowner and the purchaser based on an based on an appraisal. So we submit project applications to the Forest Service annually in the fall. It's a competitive grant process. We can ask for up to $20 million for a single project. And the projects are then ranked and scored nationally, and program funding levels are ultimately decided by the Congress's appropriations process. So our funding level can vary. We recently have been given an increase in funding after the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act. So in federal fiscal year 2021, the program was funded at $94 million, and that funded 28 projects across the country. So Massachusetts has been involved in forest legacy for almost 30 years, right at the beginning of the program. We joined in 1993 with the approval of our assessment of need. And in that time, we've had 31 projects funded in total for a total of $37 million in federal forest legacy funds. The Forest Legacy Program requires that 25% of the project's total cost must be non-federal cost share. With our 31 projects, we've leveraged federal funds to contribute an additional $18.7 million in cost share. And that match can come from a variety of different sources. It could be landowner donations. It could be another state grant program, such as the Landscape Partnership Grant or the land grant that are done through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. We could also use Community Preservation Act funding for cost share, or it can be a combination of funding from multiple sources. So in total, we've protected 122 individual pieces of land totaling 19,767 acres across the state of Massachusetts. So to participate in the program, each state develops an assessment of need, which identifies and delineates important forest areas and designates them as forest legacy areas. So we can only apply for forest legacy funding if the project is fully within one of those designated forest legacy areas. So this is what our legacy area looks like right now. We've amended it multiple times, but this was our most recent expansion was approved in the summer of 2020. So at that time, we added Plymouth and those other towns you've seen in southeastern Mass. So this funding is really brand new for Plymouth. This is the first time it's been available for use in your area. When we are proposing projects and funding decisions are being made, there are 3 core criteria that are being looked at. They're known as importance, threatened, and strategic. So just to run through what each of those are, importance focuses on environmental and economic project attributes, such as threatened and endangered species habitat, watershed protection, unique forest habitat, economic benefits, public recreation, and scenic resources. Threatened estimates the likelihood of forest conversion. So things they're looking at there are the rate of development and population growth in the surrounding area, physical attributes of the project area that make it suitable for building, as well as landowner circumstances. And then the final criteria, strategic, reflects the project's relevance or relationship to conservation efforts on a broader scale. For example, does the project fit, or does it provide a link to other protected lands? Does it fit within a larger conservation plan or initiative? So here I just wanted to highlight a few things about the program, a few of the important program requirements. All forest legacy acquisitions must be held by a government entity, either a state agency or a town municipality, unless if the landowner is fully donating the property. Otherwise, it has to be held by a government agency. Our CRs are held in perpetuity, both in the CR, and if it were a fee acquisition, there's language put into the CR or the deed saying that management of the property must be in accordance with a management plan and consistent with the goals of the Forest Legacy Program. All of our properties must remain at least 75% forested. So if a landowner had an agricultural field on their property that they wanted to maintain for agriculture, it would have to be at least 25%, and it would be mapped out in the CR and have to stay in that same area. The program also maintains a role in ensuring good stewardship of the land. All of our CRs are monitored every year, and we visit our fee properties once every 5 years. And all properties are required to have an approved forest stewardship plan on file with DCR before the acquisition, and they must maintain that and renew it every 10 years, or the property must be under the guidance of a town or state management plan. So that we do that to ensure that the property will be managed sustainably and within any state BMPs or regulations if harvesting is done. So, and then here, I just wanted to show you the map of all the properties we've protected throughout the state. All 122 are shown there, and a lot of our individual properties are combined together into larger projects. So you see all those listed down in the legend. Our smallest is a 7-acre donation in Princeton, and our largest acquisition was a 3,500-acre CR that's in the towns of Leverett and Shutesbury. So we have a range there, but for the most part, they're about 200 acres or less. Right now, I'm working on another acquisition in Shutesbury, a 9-tract project in and around Sturbridge. So we're moving into a new area there. As you can see, these projects are all clustered in certain areas. So I'm excited to be here tonight and talking to you about expanding Forest Legacy into Plymouth. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
If I may, this is like the second presentation that we've seen tonight that we do not have in our packets. And I'm being told, because I punched into the assistant town manager, or the acting town manager, excuse me, and asked him why it's not in our packet. And it said that Mr. Bedell requested it. So we just came off a meeting where we had all the interviews before, where we had pretty much the information, but it was a lot to fathom. Now, I really, we got this, I think, back in September. And I've gone through all of that presentation, and I wanted to educate myself, because I'm going to be quite honest, I really don't know a lot about it. And we're trying to negotiate with Holtec, and I just was always afraid of dropping my right foot for this and then messing up something with Holtec later on. But that being said, we really, I would like to have all these screens that use folks been presenting sent to Chris Bedell, so that I can go through these and give it proper. I mean, I even went as far as on the last holiday, spending the whole day watching videos, going on these websites to educate myself. And I mean, I don't want to look at it as a waste of time. I mean, I want to learn about this. I know what I've learned already from climate change, but I want you to proceed. But I mean, I can't speak for the others, but I definitely would like the information. I mean, that's only fair to give it a good thought, and, so if you could get it in after the presentation, that would be helpful. Because,
sure, I can send it to Chris.
I want to support it, but I want to see what I'm supporting. I mean, I have done due diligence. I've watched the tapes. I've watched different presentations. Different people in different areas have done. I really put it all into it, and so I could understand it, because it's new for me. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but these are all moving parts. We're going to actually be negotiating, I believe it's next week, with Holtec. So in other words, this is my biggest fear with this, right? And it has been from day one, is to worry about committing to something and then having it not be what the town is in its best interest. That's all. And I just got to clear that up. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't know how much. I did see one thing I learned tonight, that it has to go through the selectman's office, or the town will say, so that it's, they always know what's going on most of the time with the left hand. But there's just a lot of moving parts. But I want to learn this, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. But if we had all the information, if I had it all, and I'm sure some other members want, that's all. But I'm going to let you continue. But please, anybody that's going to do a presentation and, put some numbers out there and graphs, please send it to Chris Bedell, so we can actually look at it and make the right decision for the community. That's all.
It's perfectly very reasonable request. We were under the impression
man.
that it was. So thank you. We will get it out to you. I'm going to share my screen. I know you all have been working a long time tonight, so I'll try to keep this moving fairly quickly. And I hope you can see that screen. Should be saying "What if" in the top left corner. So what I'd like to do is expand upon a couple of the core criteria that Lindsay mentioned, and specifically the environmental, recreational, and economic public benefits. So Charles and Lindsay have done a wonderful job speaking about protecting and conserving the open space. I wanted to paint a picture and expand upon the concept of using this property to promote non-motorized year-round outdoor recreational activity for the residents, and also to provide the economic growth and tax relief through increased tourism visits and extended stays. And what wanted to do this in the context of the existing NSER study that was conducted, I believe it was back in 1999, we're describing the open space corridor or the wishbone, where this property would be a critical element in this gateway to ecotourism, zero carbon 2050 goal for the state, and a number of other items. And so what I'd like to do is to paint a picture, and one of the great advantages that we have is we have a role model or another area that has done this already. In northern Vermont, in the town of East Burke, is the Kingdom Trails Association that has been around for 20, 30 years, I believe. And they've been able to knit together from about 100 private landowners and create 100+ miles of non-motorized general multi-use trails. So hiking, biking, running, horseback riding, etc. This has all been done up in Kingdom Trails. They have successfully done this to the tune of attracting over 150,000 visitors every year, and creating a direct economic spend of about $10 million into this community, with about 500, 600 volunteers maintaining the tracks. And so when I was up at Kingdom Trails, I thought to myself, why couldn't Plymouth do this too? Why couldn't we, I kiddingly say I'm a big advocate of procrastination and plagiarism. Why couldn't we take their mission, provide recreation, educational opportunities by managing, maintaining, and building trails to foster the health of our community, surrounding our environment, and regional economy? And so what I'd like to talk about is this idea of using this property as a tourist attraction, and try to make some guesses of what we could do in that area. So I'm going to recite some figures, and I will send all of this information right after this meeting so that you can look at this. I'm going to recite some figures that came out of a Outdoor Foundation study fairly recently, and it probably doesn't surprise anybody that due to COVID, last year we had one of the largest jumps on record of people getting outside and enjoying the wilderness. In the lower right corner of this, you can see the top 4 activities that people were doing: running, hiking, fishing, and biking. The bar chart at the top, the study was even segmented this market down into further, so mountain biking, hiking, and trail running. It didn't have horseback riding, so I can't include that, but I'm going to be relying on this study. And this is just, this bar chart is simply looking at the growth from 2007 to 2020. So I said, if I could take those numbers, draw a 45-mile radius around the center of Plymouth, we get about 5 million people living in that radius. The study further segmented the activity levels of people into casual, moderate, and core. Casual being 1 to 11 times a year they would get outside. Moderate is basically once a month to once a week. And core is once a week or more. And if I were to take this number and this number and multiply it by that number, we would get what marketers would call the total available market. So you can see I decided to just look at the moderate and core people within the 45 million radius. We have about 100,000 mountain bikers, 637 hikers, and about 130 trail runners, for a total available market of, I'm calling day users, of about 868,000. If I were to look at out-of-town users, and Lee Filson was very nice from Plymouth to provide us some numbers. In the upper right corner in gray, our visitation, we get about 700,000 people coming to Plymouth. 71%, or 493,000, travel more than 100 miles, and they stay about 2.8 nights. So if I applied this same calculation as I did on the prior slide, I'd say, without expanding the number of people coming to Plymouth, just saying the people that are coming today, if we were to look at them, 86,000 of those would fall as mountain bikers, hikers, and trail runners. If I were to add those two up, I'd get a total available market of hikers, runners, etc., of 953, almost 1 million people. So then what I did is I simply applied some assumptions. I said, if we could get 5% of this total available market, and if the day users visited twice, they came once and said, wow, this is really great, I'm going to come back another time. And the out-of-town visitors decided, rather than staying 2.8 days, they would stay an additional 1 day. And I said, day users spend anywhere from $60 to $120 on fuel, food, snacks, drinks, etc. And out of town, if you add in the hotel, then you probably need to, rent a bike. The range would be here. By my calculations, and I would encourage the town to maybe hire or ask somebody who does this more frequently than I do, but I'd say there were about a possibility of 91,000 annual visitors that would be using this property for non-motorized recreational activities. And that would bring direct revenue into this town between $6 and $12 million annually. Now, granted, the assumptions, there are some people who could say my assumptions were way too low. There may be some people that would say my assumptions are way too high. One thing that I can say confidently is these numbers are directionally correct. We're talking about tens of thousands of visitors, and we're talking in the millions of annual tourism. But, and this is as far as I went with the economic impacts study. True studies would bring in direct effects, indirect effects, the induced effects, in other words, of this $6 to $12 million that comes into the economy that gets spent over and over again as the waiters and waitresses that receive some of this money, re-spend it, et cetera, et cetera. There's also a really important aspect that goes into most of these economic studies, and that's quality of life. We all value having facilities like what I'm talking about in our backyard, and that there are ways that economists and marketeers can quantify that number. Rather than doing that, what I did is to create an online petition, and I put this presentation together a couple of days ago. There were 1,700 people that had signed this petition. Tonight, I think there are in excess of 1,800 people who have signed this petition outlining the concepts that I've just described here. And so I thought it would be interesting. I just took a handful. I'd be happy to give you all the comments and all the people and the demographics of who've signed this. But Cole said, you know, Pine Hills is truly a special place because of the fantastic trails and community it encompasses. I've made many friends here and end up spending quite a bit of time in Plymouth because of the trail network. Dennis, outdoor recreation space is fast becoming one of our most valuable resources. And I thought Michael's was spot on. Preserving natural open space is more important ever to mitigate climate change and provide healthy, passive recreation to people, and it brings money to the community. Everybody wins. So I'm hopeful and I'm encouraging you all to seriously consider the tremendous opportunity that we have here to follow an existing success story up in Burke, Vermont. I'm happy to send you the websites, and there's actually was a great article in Yankee Magazine that talked about it. But I think we could do the same type of activity down here. And it was interesting in your discussions with the town manager earlier, the discussion came up of trying to attract businesses to Plymouth. And these are the types of quality of life issues that attract businesses, because it attracts the kinds of people that are looking to work in those businesses. And you know, they're high paying businesses. And I think this would be a great add to the town. I'm going to stop here. Again, I know you've had a long night. I think we'd all be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you. And sorry, Mr. Crindle, we will get all of this information to you as soon as we're done.
Any questions at this time for the board members?
Not necessarily a question, Mr. Chairman, but a comment. I think I know that you and I have discussed this area, and like you said earlier, we are in active negotiations with Holtec. I know Charles and I have talked about this property in the past. I mean, I'm all for it, but in the meantime, one of the goals that I think we had at some point was finding an area that folks can legally use dirt bikes and ATVs. And that is, I don't have a problem with this area as non-motorized, but we can't take something away from one and not give them the ability to do that somewhere else, because right now it is all those. It's motorized, it's mountain biking, it's hiking, it's all of that. So I understand some of the environmental concerns that people have with, you know, motorized riding, but I think it's really important that, you know, we have issues with people dirt biking and ATVs, and, you know, they're not supposed to be, and we need to find a place that they can legally do these things. I think this is area, I have family members, they're heavy into mountain biking. And I mean, this is a beautiful piece of property to do that. I never want to see it developed myself, but that's just my opinion. But I think with this, I think I would like to see if there's any suggestion from this committee that's here for something for our dirt bikers and motorized equipment, because it's a problem. And like I said, I don't feel comfortable taking away something from people that already do, although nobody should be doing anything right now, and taking that away and not having something else available for them. So I mean, really, it's like, help us find a place for them.
Anyone else wishing that question on the board? I can't see you all, so just speak up.
Charlie, or I mean, Dick.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Terry.
First, can I ask Mr. Withington to please unshare his screen so that we can
Oh,
see each
sure.
other? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why Dick can't see anybody.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you.
Nope, don't
Better
worry. Don't worry, not a
There we
problem.
go.
Okay. For possibly Lindsay, Mark, Charles. Kind of getting my head around this since this is the first time I saw it, and I do look forward to seeing the full presentation material, so thank you very much in advance. Okay, for the purposes of the grant opportunity at hand, which we have to apply for, it is not the full extent of the Holtec land at this point, correct? Lindsay
Yes,
or Charles?
I'll take this one. That's correct. What we're looking at is about 1,100 acres divided into about 12 parcels that is available now. There is another 600 acres that will become available in, they think, around 2027 or 2028. That will, then you will have to decide on how to use that property.
So it would be then applying for an additional grant.
Well,
Or so in other words, we can't just apply for the whole thing and have it come to us in parts.
all we can think about now is a grant for those unlicensed parcels.
Okay, cool.
And I don't want you to think this is the end of the discussion. A grant application, I'm sure Lindsay will tell you, it's just the beginning of a very long process.
Sure.
Holtec has to weigh in. Maybe we don't include all of those parcels. Maybe we include a portion of them. Maybe we take a portion of the Holtec and then look for opportunities by other private landowners to build this forest legacy application. So I think you may be overthinking it. Lindsay will tell you there's no obligation even to the last minute. So Lindsay, maybe you want to assure them.
Well, no, the reason that I asked this question is not about overthinking it, Charles. It is about the fact that we are about to enter into negotiations with Holtec. And I can tell you right now, our priority as a board in the negotiations is this property. So we need as much information as we can possibly get because we're going to be entering into negotiation, hence my questions. So, you know, please don't take offense by them. I actually support this, but I also understand we're about to go into negotiations with a major corporation. I worked for a major corporation at a high level, and I know they don't mess around. We have to have our act together. We have to know what we're talking about when we begin at the beginning of negotiations. So I was just trying to get my head around exactly what we would be negotiating in the short term and possibly negotiating in the long term. So, okay, cool, no problem. So it's my understanding that for the parcel at hand, the maximum grant would be $20 million.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. And the remainder of the money, what are we thinking? Where are we going to have to go for it? Because if I did my math right, I didn't quite calculate it. You're talking about, I mean, I don't know, 1,100, I can't remember what I used. You're talking around about $15,000 an acre. The value of the value of land in Plymouth for residential uses is, you know, higher than $15,000 an acre. So, and the reason I ask this is that I also know that Holtec is a major corporation and they have a profit motive. And one of the things that they have not granted us is the right of first refusal. In other words, the ability to match the highest offer. So I just kind of wanted to get an idea of where, with negotiations, how we're going to, if it's more than $20 million, where are we going? So any thoughts that your group has had on that, on down the road, please feel free to weigh in. Once again, I want you to know I'm in favor of this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Patty?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Harry. We are actually in active negotiations with them.
Right. Yeah.
So, but, and there's a couple things that we really shouldn't be discussing in this forum.
Okay.
Just, we don't want to
Fair
get
enough.
ourselves into any trouble, but, and I am like you, Harry, I support this, but I think that, you know, I would love to see some type of partnership with the town and this group for that property. But I don't think it's gonna benefit anyone if we have the town of Plymouth fighting for the land and this group fighting for the land and we aren't together. It's gonna be like, who's gonna get the land first? Me personally, and they know this, I think they should gift that land to us. So, but like I said,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
but I think where we're in active negotiations, we kind of shouldn't be talking monies or, you know, any of that kind of stuff, because we don't want to get into a situation where, you know, someone's saying, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that, and we don't want to ruin anything.
Patrick?
Just my opinion.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'll make just really quick questions. And I know, and I appreciate the board wanting to get the materials to review further, but the actual ask of the board, I think it's important that we just, before we part from this meeting, understand, you know, really clearly what that ask is and what it means for the town, and then what decisions that town has, whether to go forward or not, or stop or change, if that vote were to happen, what that means, just so that we're all like really clear, while we have, especially Lindsay here from DCR and everyone, to just explain that. I think it'd be really, really beneficial, and I appreciate the, you know, respecting the hour, the Cliff Notes version, if you can.
I appreciate it too, but I wouldn't vote on this myself until after next week.
No, I'm not asking.
Just so
about
I have
that,
the
I'm just saying-
information, Patrick, and see which
I
one. the lawyers-
Understand, sure, yep. So I'm just asking my question, just like everyone else did, didn't get interrupted, so
I'm sorry, you got some more?
I want an answer, that's what I want.
Oh, okay.
Charles, do you want to answer that one? Charles still with us?
Patrick, you're asking what, I kind of got lost in the question. You were,
So in your letter,
what the ask
it
is.
says you're asking to take a non-binding vote that it's a priority to conserve all or some of these parcels.
Exactly,
And-
that's right.
And I heard earlier that, and I don't want to be the one to be putting words in mouth, but just to kind of make it go along. Earlier, that up until the very last minute of this actually being executed, the town has the ultimate decision what to do about it. And so I was asking, just with the experts here, just to quickly go through, what is the request of the select board whenever that moves forward, not tonight, but what is the request and what does that mean? Does it hold the town to do anything or not at that point? And then, of course, we'll have to take it back and discuss it and review, but while we're all here, that's what I wanted to make sure was very clear to this board.
Thank you for letting me clarify. What we're asking the select board for is what we asked all of the other groups that we mentioned for, a letter saying that conserving the Holtec property is a high priority for the select board. That's all we need to start the grant application, because once we have the letters, and of course we couldn't do this without the select board, there is no us and you. We have to be together on this. Once we have that letter, then we can go to Holtec and ask them for a statement saying that yes, they are a willing seller, and then we can start the grant application. I think I have that correct, Lindsay, don't I?
Yes, and I just wanted to add that it was mentioned before that we might be working separately from the town, and that's really not the case. This is a way for the town to have access to a pretty significant amount of funding, that if this purchase is a priority for the town, this is a really important and great grant program where you can have access to the funding to help make that possible. So it's really us working with you and trying to help you make this happen.
Thank you.
Well,
Sorry, I'll just quickly, I'll echo that. My intention here is that this is the town would be pursuing this. This is in the best interest of the town. It's not two different groups, one and the same.
Okay. Betty?
well, I just, like I said, I don't want us to look separate. And I think, Mark, where you just said that, you know, you're here for the funding, I mean, we'll take $20 million all day long. But, and I would like you guys to kind of put your heads together with, what I had asked for motorized vehicles, because that's been, I think I've been working on it since I got into office in 2017. So, and I think it's really important. Yes, some people don't like them, some people don't want them, but, it's a sport. And there are other communities that, you know, have access to that, and they do very well. But I do, I mean, I love the fact that, you know, that property up there is a beautiful piece of property, and it belongs. We should have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from I can just say from my perspective, I'd like to see the town kind of proactively address these types of things, and would love to get into those, you know, deeper discussions. Not tonight.
Well,
I know how exhausted you
yeah.
folks all are, but just that this really is a tremendous opportunity for us, and us as collective Plymouth.
Right.
Very much.
Well, Mark, honestly, I actually had talked to Lee Hartman about this whole situation, and I think he was inviting me to for a next meeting that you guys were having with him. So I'd like to get more information on that.
Great.
Cal?
Just to answer some of Betty's questions, I've been a member of the Massachusetts Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Committee for many years. In fact, I was one of the ones that started that group by working with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. There is money available for towns to plan off-highway vehicle trail systems. We can access that money, and David Gould has attended some of the meetings in the past and knows about the program. It's just the time and the energy and the funds all need to come together for that, Betty, and we can.
Well, we have a grant writer now, so
Yep.
maybe you know, which is great. But I understand like the time and the energy and everything, but like I said, it doesn't look good for us as representatives of the community to go down this road by taking something away from someone that has access to it now. That's all I'm saying. And like I said, you know that, you know, we've tried, we want to do something like this. So maybe, you know, we have a grant writer now, Tiffany Park. She
I'm sure she'll do very well with it, and maybe it's something that we could meet with her and discuss it. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Charlie.
you get Stephen Hall, looks like he's got his hand up over there.
Thank you, Charlie. I didn't open up to the public yet, but I will now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Mr. Hall, did you want to say something?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement, sort of just show my support for this. And it seems like, the majority of you, at least initially and, verbally, seem like you might be for it. And I hope that you all review the material when Mark gets it over to you, because I feel really strongly as a resident of Plymouth and a business owner in Plymouth who's put on many events and hosted many thousands of people here in Plymouth through my events. Also, a lot of my clients in my day job are businesses in Plymouth. And as an outdoorsman, I'm just as much an outdoorsman as I am a businessman. So I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to sort of speak to this, that an area like this, the FATS concept that Mark presented is really an incredibly valuable asset that we could have and a great economic driver to the community. It would attract, there's really already a very small, I'm a mountain biker, and a lot of people you see on this call waiting here are also mountain bikers, because it's a really tight-knit community of passionate people. And a lot of us happen to be pretty successful in other parts of life as well. So I think we're all here to sort of voice the same thing. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I really feel like, I just wanted to share my support and say that I have a place up in Vermont, so I'm pretty familiar with Kingdom Trails that Mark cited, but there's also many other places that are smaller. Kingdom Trails is a massive place, but there's smaller examples of what could happen here in Plymouth, all over New England, in particular Vermont, where cultures develop around these centers, that become drivers. People take day trips to mountain bike or go trail running, or spend a day with the dogs and go to the breweries and then go to the restaurants and head to the waterfront and do all this stuff. And we already have that. We have a great, robust tourism market, obviously already, but this would just really bolster it and give us a whole new market to come to town. So I just want to support that. And really quickly, I've seen Betty on social media often cheerleading for the dirt bikers, and I'm not a dirt biker, but I do appreciate all outdoor sports. So I do think there should be a place for them. I don't know. I think the problem that you run into, and this is something that could go deeper, is that if it's open to equestrians, it also opens up problems when you have dirt bikes, obviously going by horses and things like that. So I think it needs to be a separate area. But I do think that's a great conversation to have, because I have a lot of friends who ride motorized dirt bikes, and I think people would love that. It's a family activity. So in my last point I'd like to make, Mark's numbers, I do feel that he put in there, he mentioned that some people would say they're high, some would say they were low. I'm one of those people that thinks they're low based on personal experience of traveling and spending money in hotels and mountain biking with my entire family. We're easily, I don't even know, spending hundreds of dollars a day between hotel stays and breweries and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. Never mind spending money at like Serious Cycles to buy bike parts and all the stuff that, it's a trickle down effect it would have on local businesses. So that's all. I think they did a great job. And I really hope that all of you support it. And if you have any questions about it, I think anyone on this that you see on this mosaic here of names would be more than happy to sort of share a little more with you. So thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you. I have some more questions for Shell, if I may. You sent me an email several weeks ago, and on the bottom of it where you signed it, you had a number. I dialed the number, and I'm not a voice expert, but it sounded like Frank Mann to me. Is that, I just went by the number on was that a good call? It sounded like him.
Probably you called the Southeastern Mass Pine Barrens Alliance office.
Yes.
And Frank is certainly part of the Pine Barrens Alliance.
Okay, yeah, because I went to the corporations, Attorney Galvin's office, and the president of the corporation is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The treasurer is Linda Lancaster. The vice president is Frank Mand. The clerk is Dennis Stoll. The assistant clerk is Charles Heller, and the director is Charles Heller. So, I thought this was a you know, and it probably is, but you're just a part of a larger group, right?
Yes,
I'm still trying to figure this all out.
I know it's confusing.
Yep.
SEMPA, Southeastern Mass Pine Barrens Alliance, is the coordinator for a different organization called the Massachusetts Coastal Pine Barrens Partnership.
Okay,
And that is a regional conservation partnership with its own steering committee. And we basically are the doobies for that larger group.
all right.
I know it's confusing.
Well, no, it only, when I call a number, I said, well, it doesn't sound, you know, so I hung up. I don't know, but maybe I dialed the wrong number. So then I went to look and I figured it out. Well, I'm kind of figuring it out. So we will take this up again for support, but I would like to have myself have the information. I'm sure there's other members that would too. And that's all. And I'm gonna have questions. I'll reach out to Mark and yourself, if that's possible. But we also have another site in Plymouth, and I'm just curious. So this one, the 1,000-acre site that everybody's always talking about with all the titles. How does that rank versus this one? And the second question I have is, how do you heard, I don't know if any of you saw it, but we did some interviews for the town manager tonight, and all we heard about was economic development. We haven't had any in a good long time in town, as far as like a park goes or something like that. Where do you, Mark, you were a town meeting member, and maybe you still are, no disrespect.
No.
But I mean, these are the kind of things you have to weigh when you sit in these chairs, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's why I use the word balance, because there has to be some balance. It's not that I don't support what you're trying to do. And, you know, I'm gonna need a little more information, but I'm definitely on board with it. As far as that goes, I just need to have the details of it. And how do we address, you know, there might be another project coming down the pike, you know, in a couple of months, we'll know. If that happens and we have economic on that site, then maybe this won't be such a, everybody gleaming to it. Believe me, I'm not saying at all that I think 1,200 acres should be developed. That would definitely not be where I'm coming from as one person. But as the person that I am and where I sit, I have to think of the big picture and try to get all the pieces together. And I'm sure we can do it. I just need to feel comfortable speaking for me as being comfortable, and, you know, that I'm in. I mean, I've been reading all about the climate change, and I get it. And I know it's time to move on it, but I just need to figure out those other parts, that's all.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I think I would encourage the town on this piece of property to really look at it from an economic analysis. And frankly, what I've done tonight is the start. It is by no means a full economic analysis, and is as much so that you really need to look at both sides of the balance sheet. So I've talked about economic input, 6 to 12 million. We need to think about, well, how much is it going to cost to get that? And I think that is really, at the end of the day, what we really need to be thinking about is the cost of service. So how much does it cost to do something like what we're proposing, and how much does it cost to do other things? One of the wonderful things about tourism, as we all know, is folks come to this town. We do our best to help them take the money out of their wallet and put it in our wallets. And when they're done, they go home. We don't have to educate their children. We don't have to plow their streets. We don't have to protect their homes from fire and theft. So there are other things that we need to do to support tourism, but I would highly encourage us to think about this from that perspective, cost of service. And we do need to put in that final one, which is the quality of life. I think that's an element here that we're all enjoying. And I think we're in you know, violent agreement that's an important element for us. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to dig further into this and help however I can.
All right. Any other questions for the board? See, and then is there anybody out in the public who'd like to comment on this? Or anyone wishing to speak, I should say? Chris, is there anyone wishing to speak on this, do you know?
Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bowles?
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd just like to make one point. This is an opportunity that the town can't overlook. Putting this much land into conservation, that's never going to happen again. The point that I really want to make is most of this discussion has been around the economic impact of doing this. I'd like to point out that the people who are going to benefit the most if this goes forward are residents of the town. They're the ones that are going to be there every day, going for a walk, walking their dogs, going for a run on the trails. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So you want us to get us our information, ask a few more questions, and then maybe we can all get together one more time?
That would be great.
Is that okay?
Does that work for you, Cheryl?
I'm gonna
Yes.
try to get it within 2 weeks, okay, or by the end of the month, but it should be. I want to see if we can, Mark, get some of the numbers. I'll call you and see if we can get some numbers or maybe look at a study or something that'll help us. You know, if anything, it'll help you get the grants that you're trying to get. So we'll have a discussion if that's okay.
I
Great.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks.
All right,
Thank
thank you very much. Okay. Chris, is there anyone wishing to speak on the public comment?
I know of at the moment.
Okay. We have licenses and administrative notes. Licenses, spectacle management, a one-day wine and malt license for February 9th, 2022 from 7 to 11 PM at Memorial Hall.
Move it.
Second, Patrick,
Second, yep.
discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Map Promotions, one-day wine and malt license, February 5th, 2022 from 5 PM to 12 AM at Memorial Hall.
Move it.
Second,
Second, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. We have 2 administrative notes.
move as a group.
Second that.
Second. Just Harry?
Discussion. Administrative note number 1. We approved $151,200 last week. I'm going to assume, or is there confirmation that this is not an additional $153,200, but is instead an update of the amount they're requesting from ARPA funds?
Chairman Quintel,
Yes.
it is an additional request, and this is requested through the emergency management group. So it's in addition. So we're doubling the amount that we'll have of tests.
What is the reason for doubling the amount of the tests?
So it was based on pallets, and I think they basically said that they could get 4 pallets instead of 2, and they'd like to take those other 2 and put them in storage so they're available when and if we need them.
Okay.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Committee liaison report update. Old business. Letters. New business. And just to let everybody know, there'll be no executive session. We don't need either or. Motion to adjourn,
Motion.
and we'll see you Friday morning at 9 a.m. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.